Hello, welcome. This is now our official episode. Last week was a pilot. This is the real deal, so there can be no screw-ups, right?
Yeah, as if there's not going to be any. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ricardo&Reddie. It's episode 1 of this great show. Hopefully, Mark, what a week it's been.
It has been. And what a really bad note to end on. This virus is getting worse, and it looks like we'll be in lockdown for much longer than we anticipated. But that's why we're doing this show, so that we can find something good to lift our spirits at the end of the week, because enough with the bad news.
Yeah, there's been good stuff happening, though, this week, because my favourite show, Australian Survivor, started. Brisbane got the Olympics. That's pretty exciting.
Good. And my HelloFresh endeavour has gone better. My cooking has gone much better than it did. I went on to HelloFresh because they send you all the ingredients, so you don't have to go into Woolies and, work out what you need. They send it all to you, and then you can just make it. This isn't a sponsored ad again, but it actually gives you some time to do something, and I feel like I'm filling my night. So initially it was a disaster. It's now going much better.
We'll actually show everyone just how much of a disaster it was later in the show. And one of our guests is also going to be talking about the cooking skills and how cooking can bring a community together during lockdown. So that's later in the program. We've also got a guest coming in from Rome in Italy. He's a Sydney sider, grew up in Sydney, and grew his television career starting locally in Australia and then into parts of Asia and Europe. So we want to talk to him about how he grew and obviously his experience living in lockdown in London, because the lockdown there was a lot harsher than what we see here in Sydney. But Mark, maybe let's tell everyone what the show is all about for those of them joining for the first time.
So given that we are in this doom and gloom situation, we're looking to talk to people who are doing interesting things in lockdown, some inspiring stories, or just some facts that we don't know about people, like, anything, some sort of weird skill you have, something that's kind of different to what we're always hearing about, and hopefully something positive. So that's exactly what we've got on the show today. Last week we had Lara, who's a new mother who gave birth during a pandemic, and Donnie, who's a fashion stylist who has been helping lift people's spirits during the pandemic too, giving them makeovers. And so this week we've got 2 very different guests that hopefully will add to that.
Yeah, so obviously if you know someone that's doing something inspiring or has an uplifting story to tell, get in touch, and you can do that by sending us an email at ricardo&reddie@gmail.com, or send us a message on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Ricardo&Reddie. Don't forget, this show is live, so if you do have any questions or some comments, you can leave those in the comment section of the Facebook video, or any questions for our guests, we'll be able to post it to them. So let's start, shall we? Our first guest built his career in television production from the ground up, starting on programs like Good Morning Australia and Australian Idol. He now travels the world consulting on some of the most popular reality TV talent shows. He's also experienced at a very, very long lockdown, because he now lives in London, and it's timely given what's happening all over in Australia and particularly in Sydney. So Paul Riggio, he joins us now, but he joins us from Italy.
Oh, look, I thought I'd give you the authentic experience here. Hello, everybody.
I'm having a drink.
With my little espresso.
I'm having a champagne. Paul, what are you doing in Italy?
Well, I'm actually here for work, believe it or not. Well, apart from getting fatter, each day with every pasta and pizza and gelato that I'm eating, I am here for work. But my husband and I are also very lucky that we both have family here. So we're going to extend and stay this summer. I'm really sorry for everybody else watching. I know it's a difficult time in Australia, and especially today's news in Sydney and New South Wales. So my heart does go out to all of you, and I promise not to over spam you on my social media.
But you're in Italy. I'm curious to know what the whole situation is like there at the moment. Does it feel like things are going back to normal?
It depends. It depends on the day, to be honest. Italy is receiving some news. Obviously, the cases here in Italy are on the increase as well, like a lot of Europe. I think it's 5,000 cases yesterday. So some of the zones, they're moving into more of a local kind of restrictions. So it's we're at that pivotal point where we'll see what happens in the next few days.
You currently live in London though, so I want to start before we go into your TV career. How do those restrictions compare in Italy and in London? Because restrictions are now eased in London, but you haven't experienced those easing of restrictions yet, have you?
No, we haven't, because we arrived here before the July 19 date where they opened up all the restrictions. Here in Italy, look, it's still very cautious. People are wearing their face masks everywhere. Social distancing is in place. I have to say that they really abide by the rules here in Italy. Everybody it's a very much a community spirit here. London, I think, there's certainly, from all the people that I talk to, obviously all my friends and colleagues, there is a cautious relief, I think. A lot of us are vaccinated. I think we're looking at almost 70% fully vaccinated. Wow. So there's that relief that's kind of taken off, because it was pretty scary in the beginning, I have to admit. But that has taken kind of that edge off. But I think people are people are tired of lockdown, tired of coronavirus.
Now, Paul,
I apologize.
You're back. That's okay. Is it us or is it you?
It's probably me, to be honest. The joy of doing a live.
You guys have got back
live on the internet.
Quite bad.
Well, you know all about live, but again, just before that, I think it'd be good to get some advice or some comments from you about the situation in London, because you've been in London for what, 3 or 4 years now, but you spent like pretty much all of last year in lockdown. Sydney's gone into an extended lockdown right now. I think we're in about week 4 or week 5. But I think if we take into consideration Melbourne or Victoria, I think Melbourne combined, right, they're now 6 months in lockdown if you take it back to the beginning. So, Paul, what was lockdown like for you, and how did you cope?
Yeah, I think we spent the best part of it, the past year in lockdown. Or whether it's a year or a month, it's hard. It's a real challenge. And the only way through is the best way you can get through. The best way you can get through it. We did all the things that we're told to. We kept a routine. The alarm went off every morning at 7. We exercised every morning. We made sure we got out for our once a day walk that we're allowed. We did all of those activities that tried to keep our day filled. Little fun things, silly things, board games. I turned into my mum with all her traditional recipes. I would call her and ask her, when we were kids, when you used to make this, how did you do it? And kind of do little video cooking sessions. You just get through. Some days are really hard, and some days you have to laugh about it. Some days you have to remind yourself how lucky you are. We still had our health, we still had our house, we still had our jobs. A lot of people were not so lucky. But at the same time, there were times where you just felt shit, and you have to allow yourself. I think that's probably my one piece of advice, because of everybody telling you what to do and how to get through it. My one piece of advice is, if you feel shit, let yourself feel shit, and tell people that.
And Paul, can I ask as well, obviously you're living in London. How did you get there? Because I understand you started very small and now you're global. So tell us a bit about
that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as Rick mentioned, I started my career out in Australia on I started out volunteering. I started doing, I didn't have context of how to, who to contact to work in TV. I always knew that I wanted to work in telly. But yeah, I started then doing volunteer work and little short gigs, 1 day here, 2 days there. I just happened to, I was working at a coffee shop as a barista, paying my way through college, and I got offered an interview from one of my regulars. Obviously, my coffee wasn't that good. She thought I needed a different job, and so she put me forward for an interview on a show that was starting out called Australian Idol, and that's where it kind of all began. And
who was someone who was the first person you came across who was a bit of a star, and what were they like? What were their quirky things?
So I guess on Idol, back then it was Marsha, Dicko, and Mark Holden, who were with the big stars, and even to this day, Marsha and I still remain mates, and we still chat to each other. We'll send each other messages on Facebook. She's really lovely. Her little quirky thing back then was she would smash tiles in her dressing room because she would do mosaics. So she would create mosaics on
That's something we could do in lockdown.
Wall art, but that's a good point. That's a good idea.
Because I've seen her actually running around the Botanic Gardens. She loves the Botanic Gardens. Is that true? Is that her? Because I swear that's her.
I don't know.
I swear.
Mark's going to start stalking.
I know. Well, because when I've been running, I swear I've seen her times doing a power walk there. And anyway, yeah,
it could be. She lives locally.
Yeah, right.
So, Paul, you started in Australia, but I think the point of what you also want to make is that you started at the bottom. Like you were running stuff. It's not like you just you become a producer, do you?
No. It's I got to where I got to with hard work, tenacity, and saying yes. I think I just say yes to everything. It was hey, you want to be a runner? Great. Hey, do you want to pick up a camera? Hey, do you want to do some research? Hey, do you want to try yourself at a giving an interview? Do you want? So I just said yes, and it you work your way up. It's not something that you learn out of a book. You learn on the job, and you learn by mentors and colleagues, and by that I had a lot, and then that led to the first international gig I did was my boss said, hey,
the mentors thing I quite like as a story, because I think that's important in any career. Who were your mentors, Paul, and what did they teach you?
Well, my mentors were, some of the producers that, the senior producers that I was working with, in the TV industry in Australia, who, really, I guess, gave me the confidence just to try stuff and stuff it up, basically. I think that's really important certainly in our industry, and I guess for any other industries. To allow those below you to coming up through the ranks to try stuff and fail. I think that's how you learn. And I had a lot of those people surrounding me. And again, I'm still good friends with them today. Some of them are still working in telly. Some are retired. Some,
We're going to show a video in a moment of a bit of what you've been doing throughout your career. Maybe you run us through. You did Australia, but then you moved into Asia, and then you went into Europe.
Yeah. So I did. I started again, like I was saying. I say yes to everything. So the first thing I said yes to was, my boss at the time said, "Hey, we need somebody in Jakarta in Indonesia for Indonesia's Got Talent. Do you want to do it?" So I said yes, and I went up there and I helped the team run through, set up Indonesia's Got Talent. From there, Asia's Got Talent came along, and that was a real highlight for me. That was the first pan-regional version of the format that we did. It involved 22 countries across the region, numerous broadcasters. It was a massive undertaking. So that was a real highlight. From there, I went off and I was an executive producer on a show in the US for Simon Cowell. And then, and in between that, coming back and forth to and from Australia as well, working on shows here, X Factor and Got Talent. in Australia, and it's always been, my work in my career has mainly been with Fremantle, the company I work for, and so 4 years now I've been a part of their global entertainment production division out of head office in London.
What's Simon Cowell like?
Simon, well, I mean, that was bizarre. So you spend your career making his shows, Got Talent, X Factor, Simon Cowell Creations, and then you kind of have that moment where you're like, oh, shit, I'm sitting in his house drinking tea, and he's talking to me, and he wants to know what I think and what I. So the first meeting was just bizarre, but no, he's very professional. He's very open and very much wants to hear your thoughts and your views. And he's always, pushing the boundaries, wanting you to break the rules. But yeah, it's bizarre. You sit there in, one room or one, or the other in his LA mansion, and you're kind of sitting on the floor watching shows, looking through shows, talking about stuff. But he's very, very professional and very hospitable.
Can I ask, because obviously people that come across really hard on TV and a bit of a ball buster, a bit controversial, is he really like that in real life, or is he much nicer?
No, I think Simon is Simon, and that's what we love about him on the telly. He's always very honest. Let's be honest. The industry that the music industry can be very cutthroat, and I think he's very honest. I don't think he's cruel or mean, and I think certainly since becoming a dad, he likes to enjoy the fun, lighter side of things. But no, I see him as just a consummate professional.
Paul, what's your favourite show that you've worked on, and potentially something that we haven't seen in Australia yet?
Well, actually, I mean, it's only beginning now, but there's a new. Well, okay. So my favourite shows are Got Talent. Absolutely, I love Got Talent just because of what it stands for, what it represents, what we see on the telly. Anyone doing anything, I love that. The Masked Singer. So that's a show that we roll out in the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. The Masked Singer is just bizarre, and I like that, and particularly at this time of this world that we're living in now, silly shows like that just offer you the escape. But we've got some really interesting stuff coming up as well that you haven't seen in Australia yet. There's a new drag show coming along that it's drag sort of transformation, but it has some real heart to it, which was a massive success in the Netherlands. So we'll be rolling that out shortly. So that will be a very interesting one to look out for.
Is it like RuPaul's, or is it? You can't say. Okay.
No, it's not. It's not like RuPaul's. Okay. No, it's definitely it's a kind of celebrity transformation show with celebrating drag queens, celebrating the LGBT community, celebrating diversity and inclusion, and it's a lot of fun.
Paul, just before we let you go, we've got a question. Yeah. It's from Natasha. What's your takeaway message for those starting out in the industry?
Good question. Keep knocking on doors and always pick yourself up and dust yourself off, because you will get a lot of no's. I used to have a file of all the rejection letters that I would get. Back then when I started out, we used to actually send letters, and I would get
they handwritten
in the mail and chiseled in stone. So I kept a file of all of those as that kind of drive to keep me keep going. So I would say, keep knocking on doors. Don't take no for an answer. Be nice. People want to work with nice people. So the nicer you are and the easier you are to work with, you'll get your next gig. And say yes to everything.
And don't take anything personally.
Never. Which is very hard. Which is very hard in the creative industry, because you're judged, whether it's by viewers or network executives, or that you're always judged for whatever you do, just as long as you've done the best job. And you know, there's, for every person that dislikes something, there's somebody that loves it.
Hey, Paul,
Great.
that was great. Thank you so much for all that advice and that insight from Italy. We'll let you get back to Rome.
Thank
Go get
you.
yourself Aperol Spritz.
Yeah, I'll do that. I didn't want to rub it in, but yeah, I'll definitely do that. Sending my love to all of you in Australia. I really also wish that the hardest thing has been not being able to get back there with my friends, with my family. I want to get back there as soon as I can, but I'm sending you love and strength through this challenging time, and stay strong. You will definitely get through it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Paul. Thank you, mate.
Ciao.
Paul Riggio there, live from Rome in Italy.
Look at that. We've got a satellite budget.
Couldn't do this back in the day when I started.
No, you had to actually pay money to get people to connect from the other side of the world.
It's a great story because it's one that a lot of TV people are very familiar with, how you do start from the ground up. You do start by just watching people do their jobs, getting coffee, getting involved, making mistakes when you're younger, because this sort of stuff doesn't just happen, does it?
It's like online dating. It's which didn't exist when I first started out. And it's just constantly hounding you, like, just say yes, reply. Why don't you just reply? Just yes or no. Anyway. I'm projecting.
Mark, who's our next guest?
All right, so our next guest is Flip Pryor. She works at the ABC. She's a journalist, and she's also changing the community in her building. So let's bring her in. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. So Flip, tell us a bit about yourself firstly. What do you do for work? And then we'll get into what you're doing now.
I do mysterious things at work. I work, my job title is audience and content development, which I don't know, what does that even mean? But basically I experiment with tools and help to build big investigative projects. It's a very exciting job. It's very challenging a lot of the time, and I love it. It's really great.
And so obviously, we've had some bad news here in Sydney today that this lockdown looks like it's going to continue for a very long time. 124, it's just getting worse. So let's not go too much into that, but tell us a bit about what you're doing in your building that has nothing to do with your work.
Trying to stave off madness and loneliness. I've got a bit of a habit of harassing my neighbours until they become my friends, because I think there's not enough of that. We live in the same building, and most of the time it's just a nod and a smile, if that. And I actually really like to get to know the people who are in my space. I live alone, and in the last building I lived in Redfern, we had a really successful group that I formed a social club with my 75-year-old neighbour, Kevin, who might be tuning in maybe. And that club is still going strong. And we just, we had drinks together and we hosted things at each other's houses, and it was just really lovely. So when I came here, I tried to replicate it basically. And there's two people in the building that I've become particularly good friends with, Janine and Charlotte. And we all live alone. And it's this weird situation where we know that right next door or just upstairs, someone is suffering through living alone in a pandemic. So I just thought, what can be... They were going to come around to my house for dinner on the Sunday, and I bought everything, and then suddenly we were in lockdown. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll just cook it anyway. I'll just drop it at their doorstep. And then from there, we didn't plan it. One of them said, I'll cook. I'll bring dinner around in the next couple of days. And then Charlotte said, I'll cook as well. And we've just been swapping meals every couple of nights since then. It's been really lovely.
Can we let me just show everyone how this is all done. So give me 1 second. Here it is.
Hi guys, welcome to Flip's Isolation Kitchen. It's my turn to cook dinner for the neighbours tonight. I'm not sure what I'm going to make yet, so I better have a look at what I've got in the fridge, because I'm supposed to deliver it in about 1 hour's time. So let's have a look. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to get pretty inventive. Okay, we're ready to start cooking, and I'll just show you what we're doing. We've got Thai beef salad. Okay, we're ready. Dinner is cooked, and we're going to take it to the neighbour next door. Janice, dinner. Don't let the dog get it. There you go.
Oh!
Dinner.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoy.
From neighbours.
Bye. See you later.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Now I can eat my dinner.
Flip,
love
I
that.
want to know, do you get your plates back?
Yeah, and usually they're full of food from the next dinner, so it's really good.
Right.
So it's sustainable too. It's all about sustainable packaging. Great.
Basically, yes. Yeah, and I get 2 surprise dinners, and I think, Mark, you live alone as well, and it's a really big deal to live alone during a pandemic. It sucks. Because suddenly 95% of your social time is gone. You don't see your colleagues anymore. I'm working at home 100%. And you go from someone who has this very full, very entertaining, very rich social life to suddenly it's you. And I live in a really tiny apartment because Sydney. And, I take 2 steps from my desk and then I'm on the couch and I finish work. So there's not, you have to really break the space up and do entertaining things because otherwise you just go crazy. And, I was hearing today that this could go until October or November. And I'm thinking, okay, I really need to get very creative with hobbies and just keep looking out for the people in my building. Janine's going to teach me how to sew. She made a video so I can sew some masks and, domestic goddess, tick. That'll be another one.
Because I also think as well, and this was brought up in one of the news conferences, and not to get political, but someone actually raised a good point about establishing social bubbles, and that's kind of dwindled away. We haven't heard much about that again because obviously you can see an intimate partner. There are certain mechanisms in place to allow people to see each other, but single people really do suffer, and it's hard.
Yeah, and look, to be frank, it is bizarre to me that I could technically bring a Tinder hookup round to my place and hang out with them, but I can't see one of my closest friends. That is how ridiculous it is. And one of my friends, Mel Tate, has actually launched a change.org today, which I do not endorse as a member of the ABC. Just letting you know it's out there. I think they're up to about 1,500 signatures, and it's continuing to get a bit of steam because I think there's something like 300,000 people living alone in this city. And, if we're going to expect those people to not see anyone apart from being outside for a walk for 3 more months, that's a big deal. You're going to start to see some real mental health effects from that. So, I've got 3 walks booked in tomorrow because it's the only time I can go outside and see people, which is good for my fitness, but, there's a lot
You're
of
absolutely right, Flip, because the latest data from the census from 2016 shows that in the city of Sydney, there's 36.3% of all households are single-person households, and in terms of the greatest city of Sydney, there's about 20%. So there's a big number there. And very quickly, we did get some feedback from some of your mates. Joe says Flip's Redfern group is still going years later. Some of us had online drinks.
Cool.
And also heard from Janine, I'm the neighbour and I still have Flip's bowls.
And how was the Thai beef salad, Janine? How was the Thai beef salad? Because it looked amazing.
Really good.
Really, really good.
It was good. Yeah. I think I just want more people to do it because it takes nothing to say hello. Everyone's really frightened at the moment. And everyone's really stressed, and those little kindnesses can mean the world to people, And maybe if you don't know your neighbours, you could just surprise them with a knock on the door and just drop them off some food and say, hey, I thought you might be having a tough time. I'm locked up alone as well. I made you some dinner.
And it is interesting because I actually have a friend who met a 91-year-old woman at a pub in Shakespeare, and they became friendship, been there for ages. And she's now like her carer. She lives in commission housing and she doesn't know many people apart from at the pub. But during this time, she needs extra assistance because she's 91. And they've got this beautiful friendship. And it's so interesting to me because I feel like Sydney doesn't have that culture of like even you go to a bar and you say hi to the bar and they kind of look at you like, do I know you? Brisbane.
I've had an experience. Yeah, I've definitely had some awkward encounters. But, you know, I just keep trying because I think that the benefit for everyone is huge. And, you know, it's nice knowing that there's some people in my building who've got my back, you know, and that they're looking out for me and I don't feel completely alone. Another little project I've got going, I try not to show my address, but this is a stack of letters I've received from people that I've saved for the weekend when I can sit down and read them properly. I just put a note out the other day and I said to old friends, new friends, colleagues, everybody on Twitter, and I said, why don't you write me a letter and tell me how you're feeling, tell me how you're going. It's all a bit weird. And what I'll do is I'll write back to you, but then I'm also going to send your letter back to you in 5 years' time so that you have a record of this madness, basically, that we're going through and what you were thinking and feeling. Because most of us are not taking the time to sit down and think about it because we're all in the daily grind trying to get through it, right? So this is like a little time capsule project, I'm calling it. And I'm really excited. I've got 5 letters to read this weekend from, you know, friends old and new, and that's really cool.
Hey, Philip, really appreciate your time. Some great ideas. We just need to really learn how to cook properly first, though, hey?
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Flip. Talk to you soon. Good luck. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
I think she was busy there.
I know she had someone demanding their plate back. Also, that's really good. I want to get that. That's not in HelloFresh, the type of stuff.
Right, okay. Speaking of HelloFresh, obviously we all have been cooking a fair bit. Let me show you what I've been cooking over the past week. So on the left, you've got my protein bread. So I try to do the whole low carb thing. So that's my protein bread that I bake. On the right, I did an eye fillet with like some delicately sliced avocado, a pea mash, and some shredded carrot and some spinach. They're all just things that just happen to be in my fridge.
Amazing.
All right, so Mark, talk us through what you cooked this week. Here it is.
All right. So on the left of your screen, that is a chicken and bacon pie, like a shepherd's pie. And because I don't have an oven, because I live in a studio and it's really terrible, I have an air fryer. And I thought, wow, I realized I didn't have an oven halfway through. And I thought, what am I going to do? So I put it in baking paper in the air fryer, and then it kind of just developed into this slop, but it tasted really good. On the right-hand side, you have a Ricardo, our mums are chatting together on Facebook. And, that's cute. You guys are amazing. That age group love Facebook. And then on the right-hand side, we have it's salmon and roasted vegetables, but you can see the sauce on there is kind of curdled. I accidentally used some random white cream that was in another box, probably. I just kind of had them all together and threw it on and realized it was not the right one. But it still tasted good. You know, I reckon presentation is definitely my downfall. Motivation, really high. You know, commitment to the HelloFresh subscription, still really high. So that's my little experiment. But you know what? It's really good because I hate cooking, and it's a good experiment because it takes a good 40 minutes when you get home. And so, you know, now the Queen of the South has ended on Netflix, and I've gone through that. And Real Housewives only comes out once a week. Like, I need things to do.
And I've binged on that Lux Listing Sydney show, which I thought was fantastic.
I haven't watched that yet, but I think that makes me depressed because I just look at all these people with all these rich houses, and here I am in this tiny studio apartment in lockdown. It's definitely we didn't get many questions tonight, so we need to make sure that people are asking questions if they want.
Yes, make sure. So if you do have any questions or comments, you can leave it in the box. If you got any ideas for any guests, or you know someone that might want to be interviewed, contact us by sending us an email, ricardo&reddie@gmail.com, or send us a message via Facebook, facebook.com, Ricardo&Reddie. We're actually going to do, the plan is, I think, Mark, we'll try to do this show on weekends when we've got time and we're in lockdown. And I think the next show is going to be on Sunday at 6 o'clock.
Yes, and we'll do a bit of a preview Yes.
Yep. Who have we got?
My older cousin Leanne has just come out of hotel quarantine in Melbourne, and she has been traveling throughout the world during the pandemic for work. So she's quarantined in like so many countries. I think she's done 56 days in hotel quarantine, which is like maths is not a good point, but like it's like some sort of like, you know, fraction of a year, but like relatively significant. Oh, there we go, Matt. Yeah, exactly. Matt says, "Who cares what as long as it tastes good?" Yeah, I'm with you, Matt.
We've got one, and we've got one. We do have one question. You asked for questions. Lara Himes wants to know, Mark, what's the hardest thing you've ever made? Eggs?
That's just a dig. She's just finished the weather on the ABC, so she's come off hot, you know, decided to tune in now. So anyway, Lara, you had your turn last week. Okay, all right, enough questions.
The other guest we have is, and this is one that we found from a contact of mine who passed me on the details of someone else. He's a songwriter who's trying to get some traction. He's been in the industry for years, and over the past 2 years in lockdown, created a kids song, and it's gone viral on YouTube. So over the past 2 weeks, he's received 16 million views. So we'll be talking to him about that, and also maybe get some tips as to how he did it.
You don't even have that many followers on Twitter.
I've only got a few thousands. Hey, Mark, that was fun. Thank you, mate.
And we don't want to take viewers away from the opening ceremony, so that's why we decided to stop at 8:30.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, one of our good friends, Kumi Taguchi, who presents a show on SBS, she's actually hosting the opening ceremony. So maybe we'll get to that.
Pick that on. All right.
All right.
Have a good week.
See you guys.
Yeah. Bye.